Of all of you here this morning at Congregation Beth Yeshurun as we celebrate Shabbat and we celebrate the Bar Mitzvah of Matthew Weinstein. To begin our service, it's a pleasure to call upon his proud father and his proud mother, Debbie Weinstein and Josh Weinstein, to come up to the Bima to present a talit to their son Matthew on the occasion of his Bar Mitzvah.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahit hatetz b'tzitzit.
Amen. And now we're ready to begin our service. And just a reminder to silence your cell phones as we begin our prayers. And we turn to page 147, the beginning of the Shachrit portion of our service, as the cantor begins with Shochenat.
Shochenat marom bekadosh shemo v'chatuv ranenu tzadikim b'Adonai la yesharim nava tehila v'fi yesharim tithalal uv'divrei tzadikim b'barach uv'lishon chasidim b'tromam uv'kerev kedoshim תתקדש, ומקלות רבבות עמך בית ישראל. להודות, להלל, לשבח, לפעל, לרומם, להדל, לברך, להלל ולקלס, על כל דברי שירות ותשבחות, דוד בן ישי, עבדך משיחך, ישתבח שמך, לעד מלכנו. ברכות והודעות מעתה ועד עולם, ברוך אתה אדוני, אל מלך גדול בתשבחות, אל ההודעות אדון הנפלאות, הבוחר בשירי זמרה, מלך אל חי העולמים.
Please rise.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, ילמד ולחילותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון וחיי דכל בית ישראל, בגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך לעולם ולעולמי עלמיה. יתברך יתברך וישתבח ויתבר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי דקודשה בריחו לעילה מכל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, תאמירן בעלמא ואמרו אמן. ברכו את אדוני המבורך, ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, יוצר אור ובורא חושך, עושה שלום ובורא את הכל.
And you may be seated now as we continue on page 150.
הבס בתוכן גאלנו לימת המשיח, ואין דם מלך המשיענו לתחיית המתים. 151. אל אדון על כל המעשים, ברוך ומבורך בפי כל נשמה, גודלו וטובו מלא עולם, דעת ותבונה סובבים אותו. המתגאה על חיות הקודש ונדר בכבוד על המרכבה, זכות ומישור לפני כיסו, חסד ורחמים לפני כבודו. טובים מאורות שברא אלוהינו, יצרם בדעת בבינה ובהשכל, כוח וגבורה נתן בהם, להיות מושלים בקרב תבל, מלאים זיו ונפיקים נוגה, נאה זיוום בכל העולם, שמחים בצאתם, וששים בבואם, עושים באימה רצון תונם. בין וכבוד נותנים לשמו, סולה ונינה לזכר מלכותו, קרא לשמש ויזרח אור, ראה והתקין צורת הלבנה, שבח שבח נותנים לו, כל צבע מרום, תפארת וגדולה, שרפים ויופרים וחיות הקודש. תתברך שמו על שבח מעשה ידיך, ומאורי אור שעשית, יפרוך הסלע. 153. וכולם פותחים את פיהם בקדושה ובתורה, בשירה ובזמרה ובזמרה, ומברכים ומשבחים ומפארים ומעריצים ומקדישים וממליכים. להקדיש יוצרם בנחת רוח, בשפה ברורה ונימה קדושה, כולם כאחד עונים ואומרים ביראה, קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוך כל הארץ כבודו. ופנים חיית הקודש ונש גדול מתנשאים למצרפים, לעומתם משבחים ואומרים, ברוך כבוד אדוני במקומו. אור חדש על ציון תאיר, ונזכה כולנו מהרה לאורו, ברוך אתה אדוני יוצר המאורות. 154. והביאנו לשלום מארבע כנפות הארץ, ותוליכנו קוממיות לארצנו, כי אבואי לשעות אתה, ובנו בחרת מכל עם ולשון, וקרבתנו לשמך הגדול. סלע סלע באמת להודות לך ולייחדך באהבה. ברוך אתה אדוני הבוחר בעמו ישראל באהבה. Page 155, Matthew leads us in the Shema.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Ve'afta Adonai Elohecha bechol levavecha ubechol nafshecha ubechol meodecha. Ve'hayu hadvarim ha'eleh asher anohi metzavecha hayom al levavecha ve'shinantam levanecha ve'dibarta bam b'shivtecha v'veitecha uvleftecha v'derek ushokbecha uvkumecha ukshartam layot al yadecha v'hayu letosafot beininecha uktavtam al mezuzot beitecha uvisharecha.
And we continue silently. Page 156. Middle of the page, we join together. ויאמר אדוני אל משה לאמור דבר אל בני ישראל ואמרת עליהם יעשו להם ציצית על כנפי בגדיהם לדורותם ונתנו על ציצית הכנף פתיל תכלת והיה לכם לציצית וריתם אותו וזכרתם את כל מצוות אדוני ועשיתם אותם ולא תטורו אחרי לבבכם ואחרי עיניכם אשר אתם זונים אחריהם למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי הייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. פודנו מצילנו מעולם שמך אל אלוהים זולתך משה בני ישראל הכנו שירה בשמחה רבה ואמרו כולם 158 מי כמוך באלים אדוני מי כמוך נדר בקודש נודע תהילות עושה פלא שירה חדשה שיבחו גאולים לשמך עד שפת הים יחד כולם הודו והמליכו ויאמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. We rise. צור ישראל קומה בעזרת ישראל ופתח נאמך יהודה וישראל גואלנו אדוני צבאות שמו קדוש ישראל ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל. Join together page 159 for the opening of the Amidah.
Baruch atah Adonai Elohei v'Elohei Avotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzhak v'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel v'Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora El Elyon Gomel Hasadim Tovim Vekonei Hakol Vezocher Hastei Avo Umevi Goel Livnei V'Nehem Lama'an Shemo Ba'ava Melech Azer Ufoked Umoshia Umagen Baruch atah Adonai Magen Avraham Ufoked Sarah Atah Gibor Leolam Adonai Mechayei Hametim Atah Rav Lehoshia Mashiv HaRuah Umorith HaGashem Mekokel Hayim Behesed Mechayei Metim Berachamim Rabim Somech Noflim Verofeh Holim Umatir Asurim Umekayem Emunato Leshenei Afar Mihamo Haba Gevuro Umidomelo Melech Memitz Umehayeh Umatzmiya Yeshua V'ne'eman atah l'chayot metim Baruch atah Adonai mechayei hametim.
161. נקדש את שמך בעולם כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום ככתוב על יד נביאך וקרא זה לזה ואמר קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות מלוא כל הארץ כבודו אז בקול רעש גדול עדים חזק משמיעים קול מתנשאים לעומת שרפים לעומתם ברוך יאמרו ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו ממקומך מלכנו תופיע ותמלוך עלינו כי מחכים אנחנו לך מתי תמלוך בציון בקרוב בימינו לעולם ועד תשכון תתגדל ותתקדש בתוך ירושלים ירושלים עירך לדור ודור לדור ודור ולנצח ולנצח נצחים ועינינו תראנה תראנה מלכותך כדבר האמור בשירי עוזך על ידי דוד על ידי דוד על ידי דוד משיח צדקך ימלוך אדוני לעולם אלוהיך ציון לדור ודור hallelujah. Aaron leads us in Ledor Vador.
Ledor vador, ledor vador, ledor vador, nagid god lecha. Ledor vador, ledor vador, ledor vador, nagid god lecha. Ulenetzach netzachim, ulenetzach netzachim, kedushatecha nagdish, veshuvchacha Eloheinu mifinu lo yamush leolam va'ed. Ledor vador, ledor vador, ledor vador, nagid god lecha. Ledor vador, ledor vador, ledor vador, nagid god lecha. Ki el melech gadol, gadol vekadosh, gadol vekadosh ata. Baruch ata Adonai ha'el hakadosh.
And we remain standing, continue silent Amidah, pages 162 through 166. Please be seated as you conclude the Amidah. Ikadal v'kanash merabah b'almadi v'chilutei v'yamich malchutei v'chayachoni v'mechon v'charcho v'Yisrael v'agalav v'zman kari v'imeru Amen. Yehesh merabah mevarach le'alam u'lalmei almaya yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitbar v'yitramah v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitale v'yitalal shemei dekudesha Richu לעילה מכל אחד המשירתה, תשבחתה ונחמתה דאמירן בעלמא ויאמרו אמן. תתקבל צלותנו ועוזנו לכל ישראל, תודה מבוני בשמיה ויאמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ויאמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, ויעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ויאמרו amen.
Shabbat Shalom again, everyone, and welcome to Congregation Beth Yeshurun. We have reached the heart of our service, our Seder Kriyat HaTorah, our Torah service. And if you have an honor during our Torah service, an Aliyah to the Torah, an ark opening, we ask you to please come forward and sit here in this section of our sanctuary so our Gabaim can find you at the appropriate times during the Torah service this morning. We turn now to page 168, and we begin at the very top of the page as the cantor begins, Ein Kamocha.
Ein kamocha v'Elohim Adonai, ve'ein kema'asecha, malchutcha malchut, kol olamim u'memshaldecha b'chol dor v'dor, Adonai.
Please rise. Page 170.
Kaddish Yakira Anaiman Etush Bechan Yeheira Hava Vadamach Letiftach Libi Be'or אליבא דכל עמך ישראל לטוב ולחיים ולשלום Page 171, Matthew leads us in the Shema.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo.
Gadlu Adonai Iti, Uneromama Shemo Yachdav.
Lecha Adonai HaGadol VeHaGevura VeHaTiferet VeHaNetzach VeHaHod Kichol Bashamayim Uvaretz Kichol Bashamayim Uvaretz Lecha Adonai HaMamlacha VeYamid Nazeh Lechol Rosh Romemu Adonai Eloheinu, Vehishtachkavu, Lahadom Raglav Kadoshu, Romemu, Adonai Eloheinu, Vehishtachkavu, Lehar Kodsho, Kadosh, Kadosh, Adonai Eloheinu.
And you may be seated. So I welcome you at this time to take out your larger books in front of you in your book holders entitled Eitz Chaim, the Torah and Commentary. And this is an opportunity to follow along in the Torah service. We have an incredible portion this week. It's Parshat Toldot for Matthew's Bar Mitzvah. As we've reached this part in our Torah, we're in the midst of the Genesis story, in the midst of probably one of the most controversial stories in the Genesis story. And this is the twins. This is Jacob and Esau. They've grown up as twins, rivals, fighting with each other since the time they were in their mother's womb. Jacob has already gotten the birthright from his brother Esau. You may remember the story that Esau trades that birthright away for a bowl of stew. Coming in from a hunt, he was famished. And so Jacob, before he feeds him, says, "Sell me your birthright." But now there's the blessing. And Isaac favors Esau, who is the older son. But Rebekah, the mother, knows that it's really Jacob should be the one to continue this new monotheistic nation, this new Hebrew people. That Jacob's the one who has the wisdom and the skills, who has the inherent beauty inside his soul, who has the inherent love of God. It can't be Esau. It must be Jacob. So his mother, Rebekah, gets Jacob to disguise himself like Esau and in a way steal the blessing from his blind father, Isaac, on his deathbed. We read the blessing now. We'll pick up on page 157, and then we'll see how Esau reacts when he comes back in from getting food for his father in return for what he expects to receive the blessing. And how will Isaac respond? The father that's been duped by his son Jacob, and how will the older brother Esau respond? He's the one who deserved the blessing. How does he respond? And what can we learn from this? So I'll have a few things to say as we go through this Torah portion. We begin on page 157, verse 28.
Yamdu Rishon Baruch Shenadan Join Israel Bikdushato V'atem ad Bikim Baranai Aleichem Hayim Kolchem Hayam.
For the first Aliyah, we call Matthew's parents, Debbie and Josh Weinstein. The reading can be found in Genesis chapter 27, verse 28 through 30 on page 157.
Ready? Baruch Adonai Barach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Li'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim. V'nasan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai nosein ha'torah.
Amen. V'yiten lecha Elohim mitala shamayim mishpanei haaretz v'rov dagam v'tirosh yavdu chamim v'yishtachu lecha le'amim hevei gavil yachecha v'yishtachu lecha b'nei mecha orerecha arur mevarechecha baruch v'hi kasher kila Yitzchak levarech et Yaakov v'hi Ach, yatsa Yaakov mei pnei Yitzchak aviv, v'Esav achiv ba mitzedaho.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher natan lanu Torat emet. V'hayei olam natan b'tocheinu. Baruch Atah Adonai notein ha'torah.
Amen. Yamdu sheni.
For the second Aliyah, we call Barbara Babchick and Deborah Giddle, aunt and family friend of Matthew. The reader is Rabbi Danny Horowitz. The portion can be found in Genesis chapter 27, verses 31 through 33, pages 157 to 158.
Baruch Hu Adonai HaMvarach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Li'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaMvarach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim. V'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen. Vayaskam humatamim vayaveh li'aviv vayomer li'aviv Yakum aviv vayocham mitzed b'naho ba'avot v'racheni nafshecha vayomer lo Yitzchak aviv mi'ata vayomer ani bincha b'chorcha Esav vayecheran Yitzchak harada g'dolad mahod Vayomer mi'efa u'atzadzayid vayaveli v'achom mikol b'terem tavo v'avarechehu gam baruch yiyeh.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher natan lanu Torat emet. V'chayei olam nata b'tocheinu. Baruch Atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen.
So what's amazing now, what we just read, is that here's poor Isaac. And you almost feel bad for Isaac. His father, he's on his deathbed, nearly blind. And then when he finds out that he's been duped, that he was supposed to bless Esau, who is the older son of the twins, he did come out first. And he sees with very violent trembling and asks, who was it? Who was it that stole the blessing? And it was none other than the younger son, Jacob. And now you have, about to read, Esau just wants a blessing. That blessing he's given to his younger son can't be rescinded. It can't be canceled out. The father can't say, no problem, I canceled that blessing, let me now give it to you. It shows the power of that blessing. Once it's been given, it's been given. And it's not just an ordinary blessing, but the blessing actually says that Esau has to serve his brother. And imagine how angry Esau would be. And even though Esau becomes the enemy of the Jewish people, you feel bad for Esau here. As he asks his father, Isaac, just bless me. Have you not one blessing just for me? You can sympathize with Esau. No matter what he'll become, at this point, you can't help but feel sorry for him. Now that he's been duped by his brother, he already sold his birthright to him, and now the blessing's been stolen from him. And now we'll see how Esau will respond, and you almost can't blame him. Let's continue now with the third Aliyah, page 158.
Yamdu Shlishi.
For the third Aliyah, we call Matthew's aunts Hillary Weinstein and Sarah Weinstein Dennison. Reader is Rabbi Danny Horowitz. Portion can be found Genesis chapter 27, verses 34 through 37 on page 158.
Baruch et Adonai Hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher barucha banu mikol hamim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Tishma Esau v'divrei aviv vayitzhak tzaka gedola marad mod vayomer li'aviv baracheni gam ani avi vayomer bachicha b'merma v'yikach birchatecha vayomer achi karashmo Yaakov v'yakveni zeb hamayim et bechorati lakach v'nei ata lakach birchati vayamar alo atzalta li bracha vayan Yitzchak vayomer li Esav hein gevir samtiv lak v'et kalechav natati la'lavadim v'degam v'tibros samachtiv u'lechaifa ma'aseh b'ni.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam natan b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Yamdu Revi'i.
Okay, and then just swing around and you'll be on the other.
For the fourth Aliyah, we call Matthew's aunts Melanie Nobert and Monica Anschel. Reader is Rabbi Danny Horowitz. The portion, Genesis chapter 27, verses 38 through 40, page 158 to 159.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher baruch banu mikol hamim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Vayomer Esav el aviv. Havaracha hilacha avi baracheni gam ani avi. Vayisa Esav kolo vayev. Vayan Yitzchak avi vayomer elav. Hine mishpanei haaretz yeh moshevecha u'mitah hashamayim me'ah. V'achar b'cha techayeh v'erachicha ta'avod vayah kasher tarid ufarakta ulo me'al savarecha.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam natan b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
And now we'll prepare for the fifth reading. And now we'll see that Esau gets a blessing. It's not much of a blessing. We just read that. It's that he will serve his brother. So he gets a blessing, but it's not a blessing you would want. And you can't blame Esau. He harbors quite a grudge against his brother, but now he perhaps wants to go a little overboard. He wants to kill his brother. But he vows to do it when his father Isaac is dead. So at least he's waiting for Isaac to die. Isaac's had enough grief in his life to see he's been duped by his younger son. And so Rebekah hears what Esau plans to do to his brother Jacob. So now Rebekah, who came up with this whole plan in the first place, now comes up with another plan to save her son Jacob. He got the blessing, but now she has to save his life. And the only way she could save his life is come up with a way in which Jacob to leave the home, to go far away, to leave their place. And so now we'll read about this plan to get Jacob out of there, to save him from Esau. when Esau now is plotting to kill him once Isaac dies. We continue the fifth Aliyah, page 159.
Yamdu Chamishi.
For the fifth Aliyah, we call cousins Michael Haber, Iris Dennison, Addison Nobert, and Jake Onshell. The reader is Rabbi Danny Horowitz. The portion can be found in Genesis chapter 27, verses 41 through 46, page 159 through 160.
Baruch Adonai Hamdorach Li'olam Va'ed.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai, noten ha'torah.
Amen. Vayistam Esau et Yaakov al habracha, asher beracha aviv. Vayomer Esau b'libo, yikrevu yemei v'lavihi, v'argad Yaakov achi. Vayugad l'Rivka et divrei Esau ben hagado, v'tishlach v'tikra liYaakov ben hakatan, v'tomer elav hinei Esau achicha, minachem lecha lehargecha, v'yada b'ni shema b'koli, v'kum berach lecha, elavan achicha rana, v'yashavta imo yamim achadim, ad asher tashuv chamat achicha, ad shuv af achicha mimcha, v'shachach et asher asita lahu, v'shilachti lekachti misham lama eshkol, gam shnechem yom echad. V'tamar Rivka Yitzchak atzti b'chayim mibnei benot chet, im lakoach Yaakov, isha mibnot chet, ka'ela mibnot aretz, lam hali chayim.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam natan b'toheinu. Baruch atah Adonai, noten ha'torah.
Amen.
We'll now do a blessing for those who are ill in our congregation, their family and friends. If you would like to add a name, you're welcome now to please come forward, and we'll add their name after I read our list of other names. Misha Berach Avotenu Avraham Yitzhak V'Yakov V'Imotenu Sarah Rivka Rachav Aleah Hu Yivarech V'Peh Techolim Ha'ela. May the God of our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, grant blessing and healing to the following members of our congregation, their families, and friends. Akiva ben Julian Esther, Aliza bat Rivka, Anat bar Cohen, bat Brindle V'Yakov, Avraham Fischel ben Zahav Abrina ben Zion, Avraham Yitzhak ben Chaim, Avram ben Yitzhak Valuna, Bela Rivka bat Saraleah, Benjamin ben Avraham, Daniela bat Bela Yosef, Danielle Grace bat Nechama, Devorah Esther bat Vega Pearl, Elazar ben Ramon Vamimi, Eliezer ben Malka, Eliyahu Ariel ben Yafa, Harav Zivia, Hana bat Sarah uv Rachmiel, Ilana bat Gita, Miriam bat Rachel, Miriam Esther bat Razel, Moshe ben Yaakov Halevi, Peninas bat Sarah, Pinchas ben Shoshana ve'Avraham, Shmuel ben Rita, Tova bat Leah, Yehuda bat Natan ben Sion, Yehudit bat Gassi, Yonatan ben Eleanor, Yosef ben Avraham Sarah, Rodney Blake, Martin Block, Bradley Borden, Hal Borden, Elise Brandt, Miriam Brown, John Flatowitz, Paulette Flatowitz, John Fywell, Chase Brian Frederick, Harvey Freiberg, Nellie Ora Garson, Sydney and Mark Gold, Mike Gordon, Bill Granick, Phyllis Joachim, Nechama Joseph, Renee Karolinski, Margie Kasoy, Maria Leone, Jason Lupoloff, Max Lupoloff, Alan Malowitz, Dorothy Marr, Tyler Miller, Vicky Mitrani, Marilyn Mulbauer, Jill Smiley Needleman, Joyce Oppenheimer, Rochelle Palla, Leslie Wafwarg, Julie Scheindahl, Diane Richard Shapiro, Ike Shapiro, Bertie Simmons, Marty Snyder, Charles Soule, Franz Spector, Lucy Susie, Wendy Tavares, Guillermo Vasquez, Mendy Vetter, Mike Vine, Jerry Wender, Janice Zinn, and
Freda Batsivia, Alan Levin.
Vet Shara Cholim Bekila Kodesh Zo, Kodesh Baruch Hu Yilmi Rachimim Alachem Laxikam Larav Vatam, V'yishlach Lahem Mehurav Fu Shlem Amina Shemaim, Refuat Nefesh, Refuat Guf, B'shok Shar Chol Israel, Shabbat Yimel Zok, Refu Krovalavo, Hashtag Bagalazman Kaviv, and Umar. Amen.
Yamad Shishi.
Rabbi, you're in.
For the sixth Aliyah, we call Rabbi. The reader is Rabbi Danny Horowitz. The portion is Genesis chapter 28, verses 1 through 4 on page 160.
Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Varach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Hamim V'natan Lanu et Torato. Baruch Ata Adonai Notein HaTorah.
Amen. Vayikra Yitzchak el Yaakov vayvarech oto vayetzaveh vayom elav tikach isha mibnot Canaan kum lech padan Aram bet betuel avimecha v'kach lecha misham isha mibnot Lavan achimecha v'el Shaddai yivarech otecha v'yafecha v'yarbecha vayitel ikal amim v'yiten lecha et birkat Abraham lecha uzarecha itach l'rishtecha et eretz megudrecha Asher natan Elohim le'Avraham.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Natan Lanu Torah Emet V'chayei Olam Nata B'tochenu. Baruch Atah Adonai Notein HaTorah.
Amen. Yaman harav shvi.
For the seventh Aliyah, we call Rabbi Brian Strauss. The reading is Genesis chapter 28, verses 5 through 9, page 160 to 161. The reader, Rabbi Danny Horowitz.
Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Hamim V'natan Lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Notein HaTorah.
Amen. Vayishlach Yitzchak et Yaakov vayelech b'nen Aram Elavam ben Betuel Arami Achid Rivka Em Yaakov v'Esav Vayar Esav Kiverach Yitzchak et Yaakov Shilach oto paden Aram lakach et lo misham isha b'varacha oto Vayetzav alav lemor lo tikach isham b'benot Canaan Vayishma Yaakov el aviv el imo vayelech b'ten Aram Vayar Esav ki rod benot Canaan b'nei Yitzchak aviv Vayelech Esav el Yishmael Vayikach et Machalat Vayishmael ben Avraham achot nevayot al nashav lo leisha.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Natan Lanu Torah Emet V'chayei Olam Nata B'tochenu. Baruch Atah Adonai Notein HaTorah.
Amen.
We rise for Chatzi Kaddish. We rise for Chatzi Kaddish. We rise.
Please rise for Hatzi Kaddish.
Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabba v'mani v'achlutei v'yamich malchutei v'chayechon u'vyomechon u'chayei l'chol beit Yisrael Bagala, bagala, ubizman kari v'imeru. Amen. Dehei shmei Rabba mevarach le'alam ulal me'al mayam. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpar v'yitjuman v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei nekudesha b'richu le'ela mikol b'chata v'shirata Tush bechata v'nechemata damiran be'alma v'imeru. Amen.
May be seated.
And now with great pride and joy, we call on our bar mitzvah, Matthew, to come to the Torah. Hold on. Here we go. יעמוד הבחור הבר מצווה בנימין חי בן חיים אשר ודבורה חיה מבטיר חזק עלי לקבל את אור התורה.
For Matthew's Maftir Aliyah, that can be found on page 161, partial repeat, Genesis chapter 28, verses 7 through 9.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorah.
Baruch Adonai Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorah Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher barha banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato Baruch Adonai noten ha'Torah.
Amen.
Vayishma Yaakov El Aviv. Wait, no, it's over here. Vayishma Yaakov El Aviv Elimo Vayelech Padena Aram Vayar Esau Kiraot Benot Canaan Be'enei Yitzhak Aviv Vayelech Esau El Yishmael Vayika et Machalat bat Yishmael ben Avraham Achot Nevayot Al Nashav Lo Leisha.
Did good.
Yeah.
You did good.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata betoheinu Baruch Adonai noten ha'Torah.
Amen. Yamdu amag bivag v'lehel.
We call to lift the Torah, Michael Haber, and to dress the Torah, Brian Becerra.
וזאת התורה ששם משה לפני בני ישראל על פי אדוני ביד משה. תורה, 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 תורה ציווה לנו משה. תורה, 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 תורה ציווה לנו משה. תורה, 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 תורה ציווה לנו משה. Torah, 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 Torah ציווה לנו משה.
Then you have the. All right, you may be seated. So now we've had a chance to listen to Matthew read Torah. A beautiful job. And now we have a chance for him to do his speech. It's not just a speech, though. It's an interpretation of the Torah portion, finding something in it that he can relate to and now teach to us. He's our teacher now for the next few moments as he presents his Bar Mitzvah Devar Torah.
Shabbat Shalom. This week's Torah portion is called Toldot. It is about the sibling rivalry between Jacob and Esau, the twins born of Isaac and Rebekah. As the story goes, Jacob and Esau were very different. Esau is a hunter and Jacob is a mild-mannered boy. Their father Isaac favored Esau, while their mother Rebekah favored Jacob. One day, Esau comes back from the field hungry and asks his brother who is cooking for some stew. Jacob says yes, but tells him only if he gives up his birthright. Esau agrees and happily eats the food and drink. Years later, their father Isaac, who has become old and blind, calls out to his son Esau, "My son, go hunt some venison for me and prepare the tasty dish that I love. Bring it to me and I will eat it, and then my soul will bless you before I die." Rebekah overhears this conversation, and while Esau goes to hunt, she cooks goat meat to give Jacob so he can pretend to be his brother. Present the meat to his father so he will be the son who is blessed. She also covers his hands and necks with goat fur because Esau is hairy and Jacob is smooth-skinned. This way, Isaac will think about Jacob This way Isaac will think Jacob is Esau. Jacob does as his mother says, brings the food to his father, and his father unknowingly blesses the wrong son. When Esau learns of this, he vows to kill Jacob for having deceived his father, stealing his blessing, and taking his birthright away. So Rebekah tells Jacob to leave and go live in another town far away to protect him. Although not as bad as the story of Jacob and Esau, I can relate to this because I don't always get along with my sister and brothers. Sometimes we fight, say mean things to each other, and even think our parents treat us differently, or play favorites with one over another. Being a kid is hard, and sometimes being a parent, it might be even harder. We see in this story that the parents, Isaac and Rebekah, both clearly favor a different child. And Rebekah even tells Jacob to lie to ensure his blessing. In today's world, we can relate to this because when we see parents getting too involved in their kids' lives, micromanaging their activities, social situations, and school responsibilities. The lesson we can all take away from Toldot might be that all children are different, having their own strengths and weaknesses, and we should embrace these differences and let them live their own lives. Siblings may fight, but later in life learn to love and appreciate each other. Parents can guide their kids, but should let them experience life and its ups and downs so they can learn from their mistakes and mature to adulthood knowing they can handle anything that comes their way. I want to thank my parents for guiding me through my childhood and encouraging me to keep going when things were difficult. I want to thank my mother for planning the bar mitzvah events, for being such a great mom and friend, watching movies and shows with me, and helping me with lots of homework. I want to thank my dad for always being there for me, taking me to my baseball tournaments, to Astros, Rockets, and Texans game, and teaching me important life lessons. I want to thank Laurel for cooking nice meals for us and for always being there to talk to. I want to thank Sylvia for always making me snacks, driving me places, and playing with me when I was younger. I want to thank my sister Ellen for helping me with homework and for being such a good student at Emory, so teachers automatically like me. I want to thank my brothers, Paxton and Lachlan, for the great times we've had hanging out together and introducing me to new people. Tinsley, even though we fight sometimes, it's fun being in the same grade at the same school, hanging out together with the same crowd of friends. I especially want to thank my grandparents, all four who are here today, help me celebrate. Grandpa Sandy and Grandpa Marty, thanks for all the fun vacations, Thanksgivings, San Antonio, and New York events. Thank you, Nana, for cooking dinners at your house, especially the desserts, and for helping me with art. Thank you, Papa Jack, for watching the Astros game with me, making funny jokes, and giving me your saved coins to cash in for money. Thanks to all my aunts and uncles for all my Hanukkah gifts throughout the years and fun trips. Thanks to my cousins for hanging out with me during family occasions, and all my extended family for being here, especially the ones who traveled. Finally, thanks to all my friends, old and new, for being there for me throughout my childhood and for being here this weekend to celebrate with me. Thank you.
Yasher Koach. So we're about to read from the Haftarah, selection from the prophets. It's from the prophet Malachi, who has a very short book. We're going to read the first chapter of Malachi. It starts on page 162 in our Humashim. That's the commentary. The chapter itself begins on page 163. And we pick up on the theme of Jacob and Esau here. It's a reminder that this Malachi, by the way, is a prophet from the return from exile. So the Jews have returned to Jerusalem. They've rebuilt the temple. They're still kind of not being as good as they could be, as the prophet tells us. But nevertheless, God has an everlasting covenant with Jacob, which is reinforced in the Haftarah, page 163.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam asher bahar b'nvi'im tovim v'ratzah b'divrehem hane'emarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai habocher b'torah uv'Moshe avdo uv'Yisrael amo uv'invi'eh ha'emet v'tzedek. Masad Masad devar Adonai Yisrael beyad malaki yahavti etem Amar Adonai v'amartem bama ahavtanu Halo Isa leYaakov neum Adonai va'ohav et Yaakov veit Esav sahaneti v'asim etarav shemama v'et nahalato letzanot midbar Ki tamar Edom rishashnu v'nashuv v'nivnei horavo ko amar Adonai savo hema ivnu v'ani echaros v'kar'u lachem givu risha v'ha'am asher za'am Adonai adolam ve'enechem tirena ve'atem tomaru yido Adonai me'al ligvu Yisrael Behehen yachabed av ve'eved Adonav ve'im av ani aye kevodi ve'i Adonim ani aye morai amar Adonai sava'o lachem hakohanim bozei shemi v'amartem b'meh vazinu et shameha magishim amizbehim lechem megalal b'amartem b'meh havtanu b'marchem shulchan Adonai nivzehu Vehi tagishuni ver Lisboa ein ra Vehi tagishu Pisea vechala ein ra Hakrivehu na Lefechateha Yirtaha o Hayisa faneha Amar Adonai tzava'o Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam sor kol haolamim tzadik bechol hadorot ha'el ha'ne'eman ha'omer ve'oseh hamdaber umkayem shekol devarav emet v'tzedek ne'eman atahu Adonai Eloheinu v'ne'emanim devarecha v'dar echad midvarecha ahor lo yeshuv reikam Ki el melech ne'eman, Rahaman ata, ata Adonai, ha'el ha'ne'eman, behold devarav. Rachem al Tzion ki hi beitayenu, v'la aluvet nefesh toshia, bimhera v'yamenu, baruch ata Adonai, mesameach Tzion bevaneha. Samheinu Adonai Eloheinu be'Eliyahu hanavi avdeha uvmahu be'David mishiheha bimheira ya'avo ve'yageli beinu al kisa lo yosef zar ve'lo yinhalu od acherim et kevodo ki v'shim kodshteha nishbat halo shelo yichbein neiro le'olam va'ed Baruch atah Adonai Magen David.
Amen.
Al HaTorah, v'al HaOvadah, v'al HaNevi'im, v'al Yom HaShabbat hazeh, shenatat salanu, Adonai Eloheinu, likdusha ve'limnucha, lachavod ol tifaret. Al hakol, Adonai Eloheinu, anachnu modim la, umvarhim ota, itzbrashim ha befi kol hai, tamid le'olam va'ed, Ata Adonai, Maked HaShabbat, Makedesh HaShabbat.
Amen. Throw the candy. Simmen tov, mazel tov, mazel tov, simmen tov, mazel tov, mazel tov, simmen tov, mazel tov, simmen tov, Yehelanu, 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 Ol Chol Yisrael, Yehelanu, Yehelanu, Ol Chol Yisrael.
Mazel tov. And now we'll have the parents and Ellen, y'all stay up here because we have a blessing to say in just a moment. But before we do, I need some help. Any of our kids, we got plenty of candy. Come on up. Please come on up. And Matthew's friends, if y'all want to come up too, Come on, we got plenty of candy. We need a quick vacuum job right here. That's the quickest way to clean up a bima. I love it. And now we've sang Simon Tov and Mazel Tov. We've seen Matthew do such a beautiful job this morning, and we hope and pray there'll be many more good moments like this for him and his family as the cantor recites the Shechianu blessing.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, shechianu v'kiyemanu, v'higiyanu lazman hazeh.
Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who's kept us in life, sustained us, and allowed us to reach this very special time. And let us say, Amen. And now you may be seated. And now we continue in our service as we ask our President-elect, Carrie Hoffman, to lead us in a prayer for the United States and Israel.
Almighty God on high, omnipotent King, look down from your heavenly abode and bless the United States of America. May our leaders strive to establish justice and opportunity for all, and may they be successful in bringing peace to the family of nations. May your favor rest upon our beloved state of Israel, its land and all those who dwell therein. Protect Israel from war and hatred, and may our Jewish state bring comfort to those who seek refuge, light to those who dwell in darkness, and new hope to all humanity. We ask your blessings upon the valiant servicemen and women of the American military forces and the Israel Defense Forces, who risk their lives to protect the welfare of all your creation. Be their shelter and fortress, and do not alter them to falter. Fill their hearts with faith and courage. Protect them on land, in the air, and on the sea. Guide them in peace, lead them toward peace, and return them speedily to their families, alive and unharmed. And let us together say, Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Carrie. And now let's return to our prayer books as the cantor leads us in the Ashrei, page 181.
Ashrei yoshvei beitecha od yalelu chasela. תהילת אדוני ידבר פיו, יברכו בעשה שם קודשו לעולם ועד. אנחנו נברך יה, מעתה ועד עולם. Hallelujah.
What a beautiful day this has been for our proud parents, for Debbie and Josh, as they've seen their son Matthew become a bar mitzvah. Now, before the open ark, they offer their parents' prayers. Please rise.
Matthew, from the moment we were told you were a boy in the doctor's office during the ultrasound appointment, our lives changed. Having come from a family of 3 girls myself, this was quite a surprise. You kicked your way into life and you haven't looked back. You are our boy chick and continue the Weinstein tradition of the man of your family. You're handsome, athletic, sweet, caring, fun, inquisitive, talkative, determined, and typically know what you want and how to get it. You're my mini-me, and we share some of the same mannerisms, sense of humor, which is always interesting to experience as a parent. I'm especially proud of the hard work you've done over this past year for this weekend, enduring a pandemic, studying during the school year via Zoom, and during the summer at camp. I've watched you mature over the last year during this process, and as much as I'd love to keep you my little boy, it's been a joy to watch you grow into the young man you are today. You bring so much joy to our lives, and my hope and prayer for you is to keep enjoying the ride of life. Life may have its bumps in the road, but it can be an exciting and fulfilling journey if you remember to be grateful and appreciate each stop along the way, knowing that each one adds to the experience, whether easy or difficult. Always try to learn from your mistakes and fully enjoy the good times in life. And know that wherever you are during your journey, your family will always be here for you. I love you, and I'm very proud of you.
Dear God, thank you for blessing me with the most amazing son, Matthew. With your guidance and our support, he has grown up to be a caring, intelligent, funny young man. Matthew really loves his family, friends, and of course, all his dogs. He always has a smile on his face and does his best to help anyone who needs it. I love that when Matthew finds something he enjoys to do, like baseball, he works hard at it and always tries to improve on it. God, please continue to guide him to be independent in his thoughts and to provide him the strength and courage to face and overcome any obstacles in his past. I'm so blessed and proud to be his father. Matthew has always shown a strong interest in his Jewish religion and heritage. Please continue to guide him through the teachings of the Torah to help use those lessons to improve the lives of others around him. May Matthew be blessed with a long, happy, and fulfilling life surrounded by close friends and family.
And now, Lador Vador, from generation to generation, the Sefer Torah and all of its teachings are passed down to our bar mitzvah, Matthew.
יהללו את שם אדוני כי נשגב שמו לבדו. הודו על ארץ ושמיים וירם קרן לעמו. תהילה לכל חסידיו, תהילה לכל חסידיו, לבני ישראל עם קרובו. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Ose shalom bimromah, hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Hashivenu Adonai Elecha v'nashuva Kaddish, Kaddish Yameinu, Kaddish Yameinu Kekel.
and please be seated.
Shabbat Shalom. Someone said to me, pretty recently actually, "Oh, Rabbi, I love your sermons. You always talk about how the Torah doesn't mean what it says." Which, as a rabbi, is the last thing you want to hear anybody say about your sermons. I had to get them to clarify, and what they meant was that I often bring an interpretation from our ancient or medieval commentators, rabbis, that sheds light on a deeper meaning beyond the surface of what the Torah says. And this is true, 99% of the time, more. I stand up here and I deliver insights from our most brilliant commentators, men whose knowledge of our texts will forever far exceed my own. No matter how long I study, they always will know more than I do. But today, perhaps for the first time, I think, I'm going to tell you the oldest bone I have to pick with how the vast majority of our wisest rabbis approach what happens in the Torah regarding a very famous pair of brothers. In Toldo, we just heard, we've got these twin brothers, Jacob and Esau. And Jacob, Matthew explained it so beautifully, is a mild-mannered guy, a homebody. And Esau is the rugged hunting type. One day, and a lot of us are familiar with the story, Jacob is cooking a stew outside, as one does. Esau sees it, he's hungry, he's been hunting all day, and he asks his brother for a little bit of food that he's making. And Jacob, mild-mannered Jacob, says, "Sell me your birthright." This is a huge ask. You should know, in ancient times, that was no small thing. Your birthright, what you got for being the firstborn son, you got double the inheritance that anybody else had got in the family. That's huge. And in response to this ridiculous, outlandish request, Esau says, "Okay." Now, a ton of rabbis, ancient, medieval, modern, interpret this little bit of their story as an example of how wicked Esau is. What? They say, oh, he despised his birthright. He wasn't cheated of anything because he didn't think it was worth anything. I always dislike these interpretations of Esau and his actions because it seems to me that if anyone's being a jerk in this situation, it's Jacob. You could say, yes, Esau was being a little dramatic. He says, oh, I'm going to die anyway, so who cares about a birthright? Okay, yes, that's dramatic, but to me it just shows how desperate he was. And yes, maybe he was being a tad impulsive, but he's a young guy, is that a crime? I think taking advantage of your brother is a bigger no-no. Later in the parsha, we get the story of the blessing, and Matthew also outlined this so beautifully. Isaac is very old, his vision has deteriorated completely, he's blind. And he calls Esau, his favorite son, the hunter, the famous hunter, and asks him to get some game, cook it, give it to me, and I'll give you your blessing, your special blessing for being the firstborn. Rebecca hears this, she prefers Jacob. She wants him to get that special blessing. And so she says, I'll cook the food, you'll bring it to Isaac, you'll get the special blessing. What's Jacob's response to this little bit of trickery? Does he say, oh, mother, I cannot take my brother's rightful blessing? No. Does he say, oh, no, mother, I cannot trick my sightless, dying father? Nay. He says, hey, my brother Esau is hairy and I'm smooth and my father will think of me as a trickster. He's worried, all right? He's worried about getting caught. And he even knows he's going to come off like a trickster, so he knows what he's doing. He's not on the up and up. But Jacob doesn't take much convincing, and with a few strategically placed furs, he tricks old Isaac and steals his brother's blessing. Esau is, I think understandably, furious, and he swears that as soon as their father is gone, he's going to kill his brother and take his revenge. So many interpretations I've read about this part of their story. They see the real crime as being done by Esau. Esau? What? They say, oh, Jacob was justified because he was supposed to be a great man, so it's okay what he did to get there. What? They say, oh, but Esau, he was the bad guy. He wanted to kill his own brother. He's violent. He was an animal, not even a man. I'm thinking, I can see how he got so mad. First the birthright, then the blessing. I would be ticked. Wouldn't you be ticked? Toldot ends with 2 little verses. You'd think they were throwaways, except there are no throwaways in Torah. Esau watches Jacob being sent away, ostensibly to find a bride from among his mother's people, his family, and it wasn't weird in those days. Because, the Torah says, local girls displease their parents very much. Rebecca says, and I think this is where Esau gets his flair for the dramatic, she says, I despair of my life of these local girls that Esau has married. Because he already took several wives from the local women. And the Torah tells us, Vayar Esav kiraot banot Canaan. Esau realized the Canaanite women he married displeased his parents, so he went and married a member of his family. He married a cousin. The interpretations of this little vignette, they're all negative about Esau. What a surprise. They say, oh, he only married a woman in his family so he could inherit more land, which is not what he says. They say, oh, he should have divorced his previous wives first, which if they think the issue is polygamy, they're going to have a lot of fun with Jacob next week in the Parsha because he gets himself not 1, but 4 women. So clearly polygamy is not the issue in the Torah. Look, I'm not standing here saying, oh, Esau is a misunderstood saint. He's not a saint. But he's not a devil either. And when I look at just the words of the Torah, I see a guy who was a little impulsive in his youth. He was angry at being unfairly dealt with twice by his own brother. A guy who just wanted to do what made his parents happy. But the narrative that we hear so often in these interpretations is that Esau was bad, that he was not just bad, he was evil, in fact. I don't see it. And I think we do a disservice to the whole narrative the Torah is trying to paint by oversimplifying it into Jacob good, Esau evil. Because at the end of the day, people are never that simple. It may be easy to think of them that way, to think of ourselves that way, because then you can either vaunt or dogpile, and that always feels good. But real people in real life are a mix of motivations and emotions and values. And I like that my Torah reflects that. That makes the Torah real and realistic and relevant. Moreover, I don't think Jacob's story is nearly as compelling if you think of him as this kind of angel child from birth through adolescence, through manhood. He always did good things. He was right all the time. He was perfect. He was wonderful because who knows somebody like that? I don't, and I know I'm not like that. Frankly, Judaism as a religion doesn't do saints. All of our patriarchs, all our matriarchs are fallible. And we're meant to look at them and consider them as human beings like ourselves. Jacob was a trickster. As a child and a young man, he took advantage of his brother's impulsiveness. He went along with his mother's machinations. He deceived his blind, dying father. He stole. He was not someone to admire in Toldot. But that's okay. The Torah is not a collection of little sound bites. It's a symphony. And you have to hear the whole thing to understand it. Later on, Jacob matures. He gets married. He starts a business. He raises children. He takes a spiritual leadership role, and he learns the value of hard work, of being a good person, and of maintaining peace in a family. And much later, when he confronts his brother, he comes on his knees, begging forgiveness, bearing gifts. And it's forgiveness that Esau immediately and wholeheartedly bestows. That is a narrative I find much more compelling. 2 brothers who dealt with a lot in their lives, whose lives shaped them. That shows me a Torah that reflects the truth of our own lives in it. Because real life is never black and white, but a most beautiful and unsettling gray, where people are almost never all good or all evil, but somewhere in between, or even both by turns. And all of us can overcome shaky beginnings to become truly great. That's a Torah I want to read. That is a religion I am proud to ascribe to. Not one that shows caricatures or people with static, unchanging lives. One that mirrors real life with all of its glorious messiness and provides an example for how we can become even better versions of ourselves. So on this count, I will very respectfully disagree with so many of our ancient and medieval and modern sages, who 99.999% of the time I look to for their wisdom because it is immense wisdom, in favor of this time looking at the Torah, just the text, on its own, at the simple but powerful truths contained therein. Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you, Rabbi Ford. And now we're ready to return to our service as we begin our Musaf section of our morning prayers. We turn to page 184. Please rise.
יגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמדי וחיותי ויניח מלכותי, וחייכון ובמלכון וחייך בבית ישראל, בגלה בזמן קריב, ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך, לעלם ולעלמי עלמיה, יתברך, וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי לקודשה בריחו, לעילם כלך ושירתה, ושבחתה ונחמתה, אמירן בעלמא ואמרו Amen. Join together, page 185. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avoteinu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, גומל חסדים טובים וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות, ומביא גואל לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה, מלך עוזר ופוקד ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ופוקד שרה, אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי מתים אתה, רב להושיע, משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי מתים ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו אישני עפר, יחמוך בגבורות, ונידו מלך, מלך מביט ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות מתים, ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי המתים. 187. נעריצך ונקדישך כסוד שיח שרפי קודש, המקדישים שמך בקודש, ככתוב על יד נביאך, וקרא זה אל זה ואמר, קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוך כל הארץ כבודו, כבודו מלא עולם, ושרתת שועלים זה לזה, איה מקום כבודו, לאומתם, לאומתם, ברוך יאמרו, ברוך כבוד אדוני, ממקומו, ממקומו יפן, ויחונם עם יחדים שמו, ויחונם עם יחדים שמו, ערב ובוקר בכל יום תמיד, פעמיים באהבה שמה, אומרים שמה ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד, הוא אלוהינו אבינו, הוא מלכנו מושיענו, והוא ישמיענו, ישמיענו ברחמיו שנית, שנית, שנית לעיני כל חי, להיות לכם לאלוהים, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, ובדברי קודשך כתוב לאמור, ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהיך ציון, לדור ודור, הללויה. לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור, נגיד גודלך, לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור, נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים, ולנצח נצחים, קדושתך נקדיש, בשבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש, לא ימוש לעולם ועד. לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור, נגיד גודלך, לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור, נגיד גודלך, כי אל מלך גדול, מלך גדול, גדול וקדוש אתה, ברוך אתה, אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
We continue silently, pages 188 through 192. Please be seated as you conclude the Amidah. Continue page 189 with Yismechu.
ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי 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 שבת וקורא עונג שבת. ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי 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 שבת וקורא עונג שבת. עם מקדשי וקדשי שבי שבת, כולם ישבעו ויתענגו מטובך שבת. ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי 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 שבת וקורא עונג שבת. ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי 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 שבת וקורא עונג שבת. והשיר עשית רצית בו וקידשתו שבת, כמדת ימים אותו קראת. זכר למעשה בראשית שבת. ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי 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 שבת וקורא עונג שבת. ישמחו במלכותך,
turn to page 190 for the Al Kulam. Ve'al kulam, ve'al kulam, yitbarach ve'yitromam, yitbarach ve'yitromam, shimcha malkeinu tamid le'olam va'ed. Echol ha'chayim yodu chasena, v'yalelu et shimcha be'emet, ha'el yeshuateinu ve'ezratenu, ezratenu selah ve'al kulam, ve'al kulam, yitbarach ve'yitromam, yitbarach ve'yitromam, shimcha malkeinu tamid le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha, hatov shimcha, ulecha na'eh, On page 191, we join in Sim Shalom. Sim Shalom, Tova u'bracha, Tein v'chesed v'rachamim, Aleinu, al kol Yisrael. Amecha, Amecha, Barcheinu, Barcheinu Avinu kulanu ke'echad. Barcheinu, Barcheinu Avinu be'or panecha. Sim shalom, tova u'bracha, Tein v'chesed v'rachamim, Aleinu, al kol Yisrael. Amecha, Amecha, Kireor panecha, Atata lanu, Adonai Eloheinu, Torat chayim, ve'ahavat chesed, ve'ahavat chesed, u'tzedaka, u'bracha, ve'rachamim v'chayim v'shalom. Sim shalom, tova u'bracha, Tein v'chesed v'rachamim, Aleinu, ועל כל ישראל. עמך, עמך, וטוב בעיניך לברך את עמך ישראל בכל עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. שים שלום
טובה וברכה. חן וחסד ורחמים עלינו, על כל ישראל. עמך, עמך. Page 203. יתגלל ויתקדש שמי רבה, אל מעדי ולחידותי בי, על מלכותי וחייכון וברכונך בכל בית ישראל, הגלה בזמן קריב יאמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך, לעולם ולעלמי עלמיה, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומה ויתנשא, יתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי לקודשה בריחו. לעילה מכל אחד ושירתה, תשבחתה ונחמתה דמירן בעלמה, ויאמרו אמן. יתקבל צלותנו ואותנו כל ישראל, קודם עווני ושמיה, ויאמרו אמן. יהי שלום הרבה מן שמיה, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ויאמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ויאמרו amen. We turn to page 205 as Matthew leads us in En Keloheinu.
En Keloheinu, En Kadonenu, En Kemokeinu, En Kemoshienu, Mi Eloheinu, Mi Hadonenu, Mi Hemokeinu, Mi Kemoshienu, Nedel Eloheinu, Nodel Adonenu, Nodel Emokeinu, Nodel Moshienu, Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adonenu, Baruch Mokeinu, Baruch Moshienu, Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adonenu, Atahu Mokeinu, Atahu Moshienu, Atahu Shihidru Avoteinu, Lefaneha et Ketorat Hasamim.
All right, Matthew, great job today. Beautiful job. Really did it. Just beautiful, involved. You could tell your heart was into it, and you worked hard. And in celebration of Great Simcha, we're happy to present you some wonderful gifts, a beautiful tzedakah box from Beth Yeshurun Sisterhood, a Kiddush cup from 100 Jewish men. We give each B'nai Mitzvah a gift certificate to one of our local kosher restaurants, so you can see, your family can see how many great kosher restaurants we have here in our Jewish community. A gift certificate to the Evelyn Rubin Jewish Community Center, a $100 State of Israel bond, courtesy of the AI Minette Shep's Israel Bonding Fund, and of course, a certificate, a bar mitzvah. And I know you'll enjoy these gifts and use them often. And this is not only a great day for you, but really your entire family. And Beth Yeshurun has a lot of meaning for your family. Of course, your sister Ellen had her bat mitzvah here just a few years ago, and we got to see Ellen lead some of our prayers and did a beautiful job as well. Your mom had her bat mitzvah here, and your grandmother, Harriet, I had the opportunity of blessing her just a few years ago when she had her adult bat mitzvah here. And I had that pleasure 13 years ago. You weren't as happy when I did your bris. And of course, I got to see you graduate our preschool and our Beth Yeshurun day school. And you've always remained this social, loving young man who truly enjoys being with friends, being with other peers, and just enjoying life. You've always made friends easily, Matthew. You're a good and loyal friend who looks out for them and always helps when needed. And you're especially a good big brother with younger children. And as I mentioned, you've always had that sense of happiness and fun, quick wit. You have a great sense of humor, and you make others laugh, especially your family, on a daily basis. I'm told that each family member has a funny story about you as a little kid. Your parents used to call you our little lawyer, because you always were trying to make your point and persuade someone else to do something. And you're pretty relentless until they agree. And even now, you're still talking your parents into something every day. And that's one of your strengths. You know what you want and how to get it. And perhaps you'll be a future lawyer. You also love animals. You don't have just one animal or two animals. You have 5 dogs that you love to play with, take care of, and you miss when you're in school or out of town. And so your mitzvah project was a no-brainer when your parents mentioned collecting donations for bark, animal shelter, and adoptions. And that's where you'll be giving 10% of your monetary gifts. You're a good student. You enjoy going to school to see all your friends, school sports, art, math, and have made some good friends at Emory. Your parents are very proud of the hard work you have done in school and with your tutor to become such a great student. You also enjoy sports. You become a great all-around athlete. Baseball, and as a baseball player, you're a great hitter, pitcher, catcher, third baseman, shortstop, and outfielder. And you started playing in Bel Air Little League, then select teams, and you're trying out for Emory later this year. And you also find time to play basketball. This past summer, you studied for this bar mitzvah even while at camp, throughout the pandemic with online tutors during your school year in order to be prepared for this weekend. And you've matured a lot in the process, Matthew, taking on this responsibility and achieving what you set out to do with flying colors. And I know your parents couldn't be more proud of the young man you've become. I recently asked you, Matthew, what does it mean to become a Jewish man? You told me the good answers, right? The ones I would expect: to be more mature, to be more independent, to do things on my own, understanding there's going to be more expectations of you as you get older. That's part of life. As you get older now, we expect more of you. We know you can do more, and so we expect you to follow suit and to fulfill your obligations. You have some good role models for you in your family. You've got a good foundation of Jewish life, and so now we expect you to go out on your own and take advantage of the blessings that you've been given. As we mentioned in our Torah portion this morning, we talked a lot about blessings and sometimes about the unfairness of life. And I think it's a reminder, too, is that no matter what life's going to throw you, Matthew, in years ahead, use the guiding light that your parents have set out for you and your grandparents and others who've gone before you to help you navigate those uncharted waters. Use the wisdom of our tradition. Find those characters, those people in our Torah, in our tradition, that can help guide you. And of course, know and have confidence in yourself, the young man that you've become. There's a reason why you were able to do this morning and why you've been successful in many things that you've done throughout your life. Have that confidence in yourself to navigate those uncharted waters. Take advantage of those blessings, and then when those challenges come, to navigate it, to challenge it, to take it on, and to get what you deserve and what you want, looking out for other people throughout the process. I look forward to seeing it happen, Matthew. It's today you officially become a bar mitzvah. Mazel tov. And now it's an opportunity for the cantor and I to bless you before the open ark. We ask everyone to please rise. May Matthew continue to be a blessing to his family, his community, and the entire house of Israel. May God always bless you and keep you. May God always show you his favor and be gracious to you. May God always show you his kindness and give you the greatest blessing of all, that of shalom, that of peace. And let us say, Amen.
Turn to page 205 as Matthew leads us.
Aleinu leshabeach, gedula leotzer breshit, shelo asanu kegoye haratzot, velo samanu kamishpahot ha'adama, shelo Malkeinu kohem begor aleinu kecho hamonam orim lifnei im hakadosh barahu shehu noteh shamayim veyosed haaretz umashev yokaro bashamayim ima'ah Ushinatuzo, Begov Heimim Romim, Hu Eloheinu Einod, Emet Malkeinu Efezuloto, Kakatu Betorato, Beyadatayom, Bahashavotsa, Elevevecha. Ki Adonai Hu Ha-Elohim B'Shamayim Mima'ah Ba'al Ha'aretz Ba'al Ha'aretz B'Tachonenun V'ne'emar V'chaya Adonai L'melech Al Kol Ha'aretz Bayom Hahu Bayom Hahu Yeh Adonai Echad Ushemo 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 Echad.
And now we invite all those in mourning and all those observing a yurtzeit to remain standing for the words of the Mourner's Kaddish, page 207. Yitzgadal v'yikadash shemei rabbah, v'yamad divrach yiruteh v'yamlich machuteh, v'chayechon v'yomechon v'kayeh dekol beit Yisrael, ba'agala v'zman kariv v'yimru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mivorach leolam omei amaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudusha b'richu. Le'ela min kol berchata v'shirata, tishbechata v'nechemata, damiram b'yama v'yimru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'yakol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Osei shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'yakol Yisrael v'yimru amen. And you may be seated. So first we'll begin. Rabbi Ford has a few important announcements to share with all of us this morning.
Hi. We have some new things and some returning things here at Beth Yeshurun. First, a new thing. It's kind of a returning thing, but it's been a long time. We are starting on the second Friday of every month at 5:30, so about a half hour before services, over in the Bark Sanctuary, a healing service. So this is a service is kind of maybe a fancy word for it, but it's going to be a time where you could have some prayers, Misha Berach, for healing, for yourself or for someone else in mind. And you'll have some private time at the Ark over in the Barg. It's time to be, quiet with other people who are also in need of healing or thinking of someone who's in need of healing, to say a Misha Berach or have a Misha Berach said for you or someone else. And just to have some moment to really think about the healing that you or someone else needs, whether that's healing in their body, healing in their mind. I think everybody knows someone who needs healing, but if there's someone in your mind for you or you yourself are in need of healing, going through something, you're more than welcome to join us. You don't have to be a member. Over at 5:30 the second Friday, so that's this Friday coming up, over in the Bark Sanctuary with me. Also, on a completely different note, horse of a different color, we are bringing back My Shabbat, which you might think of as junior congregation. We call it My Shabbat here. In this case, because we're dealing with COVID and stuff, it's My Shabbat outdoors. We will be outdoors, pending rain, so who knows. But we're bringing it back. It's going to be outdoors on the preschool playgrounds. We got lots of room. It's sort of like a service 3rd through 6th grade is the goal, so you get familiar with the prayers, have a little bit of Torah, have a little bit of games, fun, challah, grape juice, what's not to like. For kids and parents, so parents are more than welcome. 3rd through 6th graders, our first My Shabbat outdoors is coming up this Saturday, 9:30 to 10:30, and I will be there too. So hope to see you at one or both.
Thank you, Rabbi Fort. And next Shabbat, we're welcoming our first scholar in residence of this program year. She's someone you don't want to miss. Very unusual type of scholar. We've never brought someone like this before. Her name is Dr. Manaz Afridi, and she's the director of the Holocaust, Genocide, and Interfaith Education Center at Manhattan College. And she's also the author of the terrific book entitled The Shoah Through Muslim Eyes. The next Friday night, she'll be speaking about her book and what it's like to be a practicing Muslim and to study the Holocaust and to be a well-respected scholar and all the work that she does for the Jewish community and some of the challenges she's faced in the Jewish community and her own Muslim community. She'll also be speaking after Shabbat services a week from today at our Shabbat luncheon. She'll be speaking about anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. We invite you to join both our talks, whether it's this Friday night or next Saturday, which I know will be a very memorable Shabbat as we welcome Dr. Afridi to Congregation Beth Yeshurun. Again, I want to wish Mazel Tov to our Bar Mitzvah Matthew on a beautiful job today. Beautiful, absolutely just terrific. Very proud of you. And I know your father, Josh, is very proud, and your mother, Debbie, extremely proud. And all your family. You've got some wonderful grandparents here and family members and friends. You made us very proud and we have a lot to celebrate and to celebrate life. I also want to thank our Shabbat Renewal Band. It's always a pleasure on the first Shabbat morning of the month as we welcome our Shabbat Renewal Band for our monthly Shabbat Refresh service, which is the first Shabbat morning of every month. So it's great to have you guys here as well. We look forward to having you this upcoming Friday night. At the conclusion of our service, we're all invited to the Kiddush Luncheon, which this morning will be in Stein Hall. So right outside the hallway, down to your right, and at the end of the hallway to your left in Stein Hall at the conclusion of our service. I'd now like to call upon of all Matthew's friends and classmates that are here, coming up to the Bima. Matthew needs your help leading a Don alums. So all of us classmates and friends, y'all come on up. You're welcome to help Matthew lead us in a Don alum, which is found in our prayer book on page 211.
אחד בין שני להמשילו להכבירה בלי ראשית בלי תכלית ולא העוז והמזרע אדון עולם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציא נברא וינסה וחפצו כל אזי מלך שמו בחי גואלי, בצור חבלי בין צרה, והוא ניסי ומנוסי, מנטוסי ביום הגרה, בידו הפקידוכי, והייתי שם והעירה, ועם רוחי הביאתי, אדוני לי ולא כל אזי מלך שמו יקרא.
And now please rise for the Kiddush and the Hamotzi.
Just hang it. 77. Here, we got it. You ready? Wow.
Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Borei pari agafen.
Amen.
Take this.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lehem min haaretz.
Good Shabbos, everyone.